Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Hunger is a real problem in this country, and Orleans County is not exempt. Today's guests are here to talk about the annual Hungerfest. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie, why don't you introduce yourself first? Everybody kind of knows you, at least behind the scenes.
I'm Carrie Steele, and I am actually working with Joe from NECA. I'm the marketing director for the project of Hungerfest 2013.
Right. And people kind of, they may not know you, but they've probably heard your voice before.
Yeah, once upon a time, long ago,
Right.
was on the morning show on Moo with Tom.
Right. And you also do voice work.
I do a lot of voice work. I do some consulting work. My company is Steele Productions, and I do consulting work for actually more nonprofits than commercial business at the moment, which is very exciting.
And Joe, when I met you today, I remembered you from your days with corrections, but you are now the
Executive Director of NECA, or Northeast Kingdom Community Action Agency.
right. So Hungerfest, it's changed a little bit this year.
It has. Previously, it was, it was founded by Todd Pronto and Devaney Shawkat.
Right.
And they started it, this will be the 8th year. There's been some changes to our area. So this year, instead of being broadcast on the local radio station, we have a few events that we're going to be doing. And the big kickoff is an actual benefit concert that's going to be held at the Haskell Opera House.
And you have a whole host of local talent here.
Absolutely. I can go into my whole spiel here for you.
Oh, sure. Go right into your spiel.
So it's going to be October 19th, and it will be from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Haskell Opera House. And we are going to, it's sort of a variety show of sorts. Todd and Devaney are still going to be the hosts of Hungerfest, and so they'll be on stage sort of walking you through the whole event that evening.
They're not going to have to camp out like they did in past years.
No camping out, and you don't even have to bring any food to the event. The purchase of the ticket, which is $15, is a full donation to the NECA food shelf. I'd like to stress that the money that's raised at this event, the money that's been raised locally, stays here in Orleans County. There were a lot of people that have made this happen, and I'll get into that. But as far as the show, we have Todd Pronto is going to be performing, singer-songwriter. We also have Wayne Warner, who is country singer. Everybody knows Wayne.
Lowell native.
Yes. We have Mark Shelton, who's kind of a master of music, so he does all sorts of varieties.
And isn't he talented? I went to school with Mark.
Yes.
And the guy can sing anything. He can sing from heavy metal to gospel.
I haven't heard the heavy metal version.
Oh, he can do it.
But I have seen him at other
Have you
benefits.
ever seen him wrestle before, though? He's also he's also one of these wrestlers. I think in his older age, I once did an article on him how he was into this, slam bam wrestling stuff, and he could stand up on the ropes
Turnbuckle.
and flip over. And the secret was the guy that he had to make sure his butt didn't hit the guy in the chest. He had to drape his legs over the person he was supposedly landing on. So he does that too.
No kidding. I don't think he'll be doing that at
Hungerfest. He used to be called the Archangel.
Oh, no kidding. So he was on big time wrestling? Or?
Well, no, this region in southern Quebec.
Wow.
No kidding. I had no idea.
That's another chapter of his life.
Well, there you go. Maybe he'll talk about it a little. We also have comedian Tony O'Connor.
Now, do you know Tony?
I don't. I've seen him around town, but I've never been officially introduced.
See, Tony and I are friends.
Okay.
Tony's do you know Tony?
No.
I think he actually got his start affiliated with one of your groups. He came here to this region. He's a triple amputee.
Right.
You would never know it. And he loves to, he pokes fun at himself a lot. He's a retired immigrations officer. And a lot of what he does, his comedy work is kind of, poking fun at his life because when he was 16, he was in New York. He was standing on top of a railroad car where he weren't supposed to be, and he picked up a snowball, reached back, and hit a high-power tension wire.
Oh, my gosh.
And he lost 3 of his limbs. And most people don't know he's missing his legs, but he does, in his humor, he brings out, like, if he is, I remember one of his things is, if his wife gets mad at him when he's sleeping, she'll stick his legs up where he can't reach them, and he can't go anywhere that day. And so it's that kind of humor.
Right.
And
I've heard he's very funny.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy, and he'll keep people laughing.
Well, we
That's
look
great.
forward to seeing him and all the other entertainers at the event.
Yeah.
So it's going to be an entire evening.
We're not going to get either one of you on the stage?
Yeah, I don't think so.
I wasn't planning on making a cameo appearance, but no. But I'm going to give Todd and Devaney some data, because I think people here really need to know what the extent of the issue is around the problem of hunger in Orleans County, and also what generous people we have in Orleans County that are helping out with that problem.
Well, how big of a problem is hunger in Orleans County?
It's a really big problem. If you listen to Bob Kern, who's the superintendent of schools for Orleans County, he says that 60 to 70% of the kids in school qualify for the free school lunch, which is dramatic. And there's about 27,000 people in Orleans County, and about 6,300 people out of that figure are on food stamps. And in order to qualify for food stamps, if you're a household of 3, you can't make more than $33,000 a year gross income. So you have to be pretty poor. So it's an extraordinary problem, and you have to understand that the food problem and the hunger problem is connected to your rent and your fuel. In Orleans County, you have to make $13.10 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. So if you're just living on the minimum wage, you have to work more than 1 job, and maybe 2 jobs. So what people do is they get into a tension around their food, warmth, and shelter concerns. And this year is going to be a really bad year, because the state has cut back and the federal government has cut back on the crisis fuel program, the emergency housing program, and food stamps are getting reduced November 1st. That is, if the government doesn't continue operating, it'll be cut altogether. But so people are up against it. So they rob Pete to pay Paul, and they end up short on their food budget. And as a result, they come to the food shelf for food. And last year, NECA gave out over 8,000 food shelves in Orleans County, which feeds about 18,000 people. 1 food shelf will feed somebody for 3 days, and 3 meals a day, mostly dry goods. We're lucky every fall. The Azores, Fran and Melanie, give us a donation of 3 to 4 tons of beef around the holidays. That's really good. And we do buy turkey baskets for people around the holidays, but the problem we're going to have this year is that we're not getting any more grants from FEMA, which gave us about $38,000 last year for the whole kingdom. In Orleans County, we got $25,000 in donations last year to augment our budget. We're not going to get any money from FEMA this year, I don't think. So this event becomes critical to us, and we've had some really, really generous sponsors that have donated to the cause, and we haven't even had the benefit yet. It's really
It's
great.
been pretty amazing. It started with a conversation, was sort of how it started. You were approached.
I think one of the things that happened was that we did a story in the Newport Daily Express on the crisis fuel program. Chris Roy wanted to do that story about a month ago. And we just sort of went through the same narrative I just did with the tension between food, warmth, and shelter. And the next thing I know, at Rotary, I'm getting approached by Chris, and he said, I'd really like, we at the paper, the editorial staff would like to do our mini Hungerfest. And I said, really? And he said, yeah. And then the next thing I knew, Lenny from NEK TV and Todd were contacting me about doing Hungerfest 2, and we didn't have a venue for it because it's no longer on Mu 92. So I got a hold of Carrie, who works for us anyway, and she's been incredible, really helped us out this year, and with public education and marketing. And so we had a work group, and we put together the work group, and we got, Carrie got us the Opera House, which is going to happen on October 19th, like she said, and we put together the work group, and Todd went out and did outreach to get the talent, and Carrie started to look
I
at
just started to
sponsors?
I just started to talk to people, and I took an opportunity. I know Ronnie Lister from North Point. I had done some consulting work for them, and I walked in and said, "Hey, you got a minute?" And he's a real approachable guy, and I sat down and I said, "There's not enough food on the food shelves," and explained, what the percentage was of kids in school that get free lunch, and this is a problem. And I was saying, starting October 1st, and I mean, look where we are right now.
Right.
Something needs to happen. And he said, "Will $10,000 be enough?" And I mean, after I got up off the floor, of course, I wasn't sure whether I was going to cry or laugh, or I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that somebody would be so generous. And their Autosaver group collects money throughout all their dealerships, and that's why they're able to donate like that.
And when Kerry had me come up to meet him and do a press release around the check and everything, I mean, really, I was impressed by how sincere he is, and bothered by the. He said, "It really bothers me when children are hungry." He said, "That just really bothers me." He said, "That's why." He said, I'm doing this. He said, "This is really a problem here," and it just was wrong.
Do you think it's harder to be poor now than, say, when I grew up poor, but on the other hand I think there was the vast majority of us were, but the thing is, I remember everybody had gardens, but then there was a lot more farmers, and it seemed like it may have been a little bit easier to be poor back then.
I think your community helped. I think your neighbors helped. If you didn't have enough potatoes, but you had a ton of tomatoes, you might swap. I think if somebody baked bread and they baked 6 loaves, they might pass on too. So I definitely think there was that whole community approach, and that's something that Joe and I have been talking about. Sort of the motto is building an us community.
Well, Dr. Fioramonti, who I've been interviewing, he's in his 90s. He talks about when he was a doctor here, he might not get paid in cash, but he might
take something in trade.
They'd give him vegetables, and so there was that whole barter.
And it seemed to be a kinder and gentler era. And people, like Kerry said, people have each other's backs. Neighbor helped neighbor. If you owed somebody money, they'd work with you on it. And let's face it, fuel was a lot cheaper, and things were a lot different back in those days. It seemed to be less complicated. And but what Kerry said is really important, because we really want to have people understand that we all live in the same community. We all share the same streets. We all share the same air. We all have our kids go to the same schools. We go to the same stores.
Regardless of what you have or don't.
Right. And we're only as strong as our weakest link, and we are less of community when there are more people that have less and are going without. And it's really like poverty really needs to be everybody's business. They need to see it that way, because if we want a strong, healthy community, we really need to help people get out of poverty.
So what kind of response have you had other than North Point? Has it all been...
This has been amazing. I have never seen anything like it, and I've been here a long time. We posted it on Facebook. You can find us under Hungerfest 2013 if you'd like. So we're on there, and what sort of happened were sponsors wanted, how can I help? How can I help in some way? So we ended up talking with, Community National Bank came on board, Fred's Plumbing and Heating came on board, North Country Hospital, Passumpsic Savings Bank, and then our partners. If somebody couldn't donate money, they would donate time or some other thing that would. A perfect example is we just had the Chris Grenier scavenger hunt. And one of the things on the list, besides you...
Yes, me. Unbeknownst to me, I was one of the things they had to scavenge for.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another thing that was mandatory was $10 worth of food had to be donated to the food shelf.
Right.
And the location was at North Point. There were 431 pounds of food donated that day in that 4-hour period. That's amazing. So it seems like in some way everybody's contributing. Big or small, it doesn't matter. $15 ticket to go to the concert. Give it as a gift. Whatever it is that you'd like to do. Drop off a check. Drop off some canned goods.
Right.
It's really helping. People are just amazing.
This is kind of a... something I've noticed is my mother, well, actually, my mother recently passed away. My father-in-law recently passed away, and so what was on my mind is, the funeral homes actually suggest, give ideas of where they can donate money to, because people want, in lieu of flowers, like ours went to the Frontier Animal Society because everybody loves the animals, but where better, might be a good place for people to consider in the long run is to, to instead of just feeding our pets,
Yeah, it would be wonderful to have,
kind of like
be a
little
beneficiary of that in some way. I mean, that obviously that's an uncomfortable thing to ask, But
I've become very comfortable around it lately.
Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry for your losses. It's been a rough road, and I think there's a lot of people who are facing a lot of tragedy, whether it's a loss or not being able to feed your family or not having the education you need. So I think there's a lot of that going on, and I really feel, for whatever anybody thinks is happening in Orleans County, our community is rallying around itself, and there's this undercurrent of giving. I mean, I've seen some of these benefits. I became aware of the Patnode benefit that was. They raised almost $40,000 at that. I mean, we're talking about people helping people. It's amazing.
And what I find is there's a fundraiser for everybody. Like for example, I loved that. I have never been involved in this recent fundraiser, but it was so fun to watch these people come scavenging for me. As I said, I thought I was a chick magnet for a while because they were all women, but come to find out it was actually my 2 golden retrievers that they were really. But it was they had so much, they besides raising money, they were having fun.
They have a great
because no disrespect to like walkathons, but there's only so much fun you can have with a walkathon.
Right.
So there's so many different ideas that people are bringing out.
I like that people are creative. I mean, Jessie Davenant's done amazing, and she's just incredible. I believe it was their 9th year, and I think that they raised about $20,000. I know they had 348 participants. That's incredible. And the fact that they were willing to partner with us for Hungerfest to help in some way is just amazing. That could have been $10 that they could have given to the Chris Grenier Fund, but instead they were willing to share it. And to me, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, there's these big events, but then every once in a while somebody will come on my show. They're having a little event to raise money for, because if somebody has cancer, you think even if you have insurance, it doesn't cover everything. Like from a person who knows what it's like to go back and forth to Dartmouth. Now I had the money, I could do it, but there's a lot of people just that gas money going back and forth.
And
that's a good point.
Just to let you know, those are the people that on occasion might have to access the food shelf. And it'd be nice if there was something other than vegetarian beans and a bag of pasta. I mean, when I took pictures of the food shelf, that's what got me really into it. There was nothing there I saw to make a meal. I mean, I go home and I make my meal. I don't know what it's like to be hungry. I don't know what it's like to be hungry. And that's bothersome. What can I do to help?
So, Joe, when a family goes into NECA, you're not able now to fulfill all their needs?
No, we're not. In terms of food, their inventory varies in the food shelf. So when Carrie saw the food shelf, there was a lot of empty shelves and a lot of empty freezers. And so, it's kind of disheartening, but we do what we can. So this really is going to help us out a lot because we can really increase our volume, we can increase our variety, and it's going to be good for people because when it gets cold, it's even harder for people. Except, of course, some families in the summertime when school's out, I mean, their kids get their best meal through school, so that's tough too. So yeah, it's going to really, really be helpful. And we at NECA, we help people any way we can with any problem that they have. This is really going to be a big deal, and I can't emphasize enough what Carrie's talking about when she says how generous this community is, because people, there's some momentum has started building around this event and some other events too, because I think the paper is planning on having a food drive around Veterans Day. And Rotary, I think, is having some kind of food drive next week at in the evening, next Tuesday or Wednesday evening, and that food is going to be put into a truck and brought down to NECA. So it's
even other like Audio Carve is doing a stuff the trailer.
Right.
You bring in 5 items and you get a discount or a free screen protector for your cell phone to stuff the trailer, and they're trying to get that done. So people are doing it in their own ways. Just because they're not on this poster doesn't mean that they're not helping. There are a lot of businesses and a lot of individuals. There's been some individual donors who've just dropped off checks just because.
But you know, I think one of the things that it became pretty important, I thought, was when Ronnie actually did his pretty significant donation, and that was in the paper. I think everybody kind of looked at that and just went, you know what, look at that. That's a really generous move, and that it brought a lot of attention to the problem. And that seemed to break the ice and start a lot of momentum around. Other people went, you know what, I want to help too.
Well, what was interesting about him was he also realized that although it's a significant donation, it's still not enough.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not going to feed everybody for the whole winter.
No, it isn't. It isn't.
So he realizes that maybe there might need to be more of a commitment on an ongoing basis.
For this is a little bit off the topic, but looking into the future, with supposedly a lot going to be happening here, are you hopeful that possibly with all the changes that are coming, or do you hope that possibly the need for the food shelf eventually won't be so great?
Well, I think that we're going to, it's hard to say. I mean, I think that we're going to have, in this particular event we're going to have every year, we're going to continue this event. It depends. I mean, Newport right now is, Bill Stanger has proposed a fairly significant economic development plan. If that works out, or even part of it works out, that's going to help a lot, I think. But it's not going to be all things to all people.
Right.
So I do think that we'll continue to have the problem. What the question is, what is the extent of the problem? And the Northeast Kingdom has been for years been the poorest part of Vermont.
Right.
And Newport's had the consistently highest unemployment rate in Vermont for a long time, and still does, at 5.2% today. So I think the problem's going to be with us for a while. The good news, again, is how generous people are here that really understand that it isn't just your problem. It's we're all in this together. Okay,
with only about 5 more minutes left, if somebody wants to be involved, other than just going to the concert, how can they become involved, as in donating, putting on events, or anything?
It's pretty easy. They can stop into the NECA location, which is at 70 Main Street, right here in Newport. I think everybody knows the building. Right. If you want to drop off food donations, they'll take them right there. You want to donate cash or a check or anything that you'd like to donate, you can do that right at 70 Main. If you want to mail it, it would be a P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 346. That's correct, right? 346 in Newport. If they wanted to do a fundraiser, a fundraiser within their own facility or with their group of friends, they can simply make a collection of either money or food, and again, drop it off. If you have a lot that you need to donate, get a hold of one of us, and we'll make sure we come and get it.
Right.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to mention too is that if somebody can't get to the food shelf because they either don't have transportation or they're unable to come for whatever reason, call 334-7316 and ask for the outreach department, and we will bring the food to you.
Right. Okay, let's go back to the event. Again, who's going to be performing?
Live performances are going to be by Todd Pronto, Wayne Warner, Mark Shelton, and comedian Tony O'Connor. And the entire event is being hosted by its founders, Todd Pronto and Devaney Shawkett. Devaney's coming back for the event. So they'll make the event. It's 7 to 9 p.m. on October 19th. It's a Saturday night. So we encourage everybody to come on by. It's $15 a ticket. If you want to buy a ticket, you can buy them at NEKTV, right on East Main Street. You can buy them at the Wood Knot Bookshop on Main Street, at the NECA office on Main Street. online at Catamount Arts, and you can also buy them at the door the night of the event about an hour before. There's a few of us floating around. I have tickets. Chris Roy has tickets. So we all have tickets. If you want tickets, you can find them.
Okay, well, let's go for the final words here. Joe.
Well, I guess I'd just like to say thanks for having us on the show, and I'd like to thank everybody in the community for all the help they've given us, and it's really shows what a great community we have.
And Carrie, your final words.
I'm just amazed by the outpouring of support, and if there's a business or a person that would like to jump on the bandwagon, track me down, track Joe down. We are open to any ideas that anybody has. You know, for example, Cow Palace is doing the night of the actual event. It's their Halloween party. So after the event, go on over to their Halloween party, and the $2 donation cover charge is coming right to the food shelf. So people are getting creative. Get creative. If you want to jump on this bandwagon, it's Hungerfest 2013. It's the 8th year, and we're super excited about it.
Well, thank you for all your work, and thanks to Devaney and Todd for all their work and kind of keeping this alive for hopefully for years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.